authority and liability. That might be a more streamlined way of doing things and wouldn't necessarily require creating a normal licensing board, but rather a method of proving competence and adequate liability insurance for the person responsible for the work. If there were a desire to look at a statewide licensure of technicians and or contractors, the Nebraska Electrical Board might be a good place to look for history and structure. Another point to consider, those in assorted contracting or building trades are already subject to many expectations regarding code compliance. Licensure, especially of individual technicians, may be less critical than having an effective inspection regime and holding contractors responsible for their employees' work. Most jurisdictions have a charge for inspections, so charging individual technicians to get a license and paying for inspections will likely add cost to the consumer. A more robust inspection program may, in many instances, be adequate to protect the public's safety and eliminate the need for some sort of licensure. Ultimately, whether the decision is made to create state licensing of individual technicians or just of contractors, it makes sense to approach licensing, if it must exist, as a state rather than as a local function, as it may allow workers to be more mobile and able to fill workforce shortages in other parts of the state. While we at the Platt Institute might prefer to see no licensing in many fields, we also want to avoid arbitrary requirements, and I'm just about finished, so I'm going to finish my sentence, and excessive fees of someone if someone chooses to work in multiple jurisdictions in the same state. It would be also better to facilitate universal recognition of workers for who might be going to other states or for those who might come to our state if we eventually pass that legislation.
Any questions from the committee?
Thank you. Laura, good to see you again. You're for licensing now.
Hard to believe, isn't it? There are already some licenses with respect to HVAC, and so if you're going to have licensing in a state like Nebraska, it makes sense to have a single license so that the workforce can move from county to county, jurisdiction to jurisdiction with minimal compliance issues. Do I think licensing is a good thing? I'd prefer to see a more robust inspection, but if we're going to have licenses, let's at least make it easier for people to be able to work all over the state.
And do you have anything else you want to say?
I think I got it all in.
I just didn't know if you had any thoughts.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for being here
Thank
today. Next testifier.
Good afternoon, Chairman Wayne, honorable members of the Urban Affairs Committee. I am Brian Rogers, BRIAN-ROGERS. I am Vice President of Field Services for the International Association of Plumbing and Mechanical Officials, commonly referred to as IAPMO. I'm speaking today in response to the legislative resolution 413, which seeks to study potential statewide professional licensing for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning technicians. The IAPMO Group, founded in 1926, is a codes and standards development organization and trade association that provides a critical voice for the industry by focusing on the technical aspects of the plumbing and mechanical sectors. Our membership includes contractors, installers, engineers, manufacturers, suppliers, plumbing and mechanical inspectors, and building officials. IAPMO's mission is to protect public health by promoting efficient and effective plumbing and mechanical systems. And before you today to share with the committee what the industry experienced when the neighboring state of Iowa instituted statewide licensing in 2009. Iowa established licensure requirements for individuals, apprentices, journeyman person, and masters who provide plumbing, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning services. The state law preempted all other licensure requirements in the state. In doing so, the state created a plumbing and mechanical systems board to oversee licensure, testing, enforcement, investigations, continuing education courses, and instructors. The board also regulates sub-licenses, which they consider to be specialty license. In developing the statewide license for Iowa, the legislature and state agencies heard from special interest groups who sought to get their piece of the pipe and have a specialty license for their special interest. For example, the Iowa Board does not simply regulate HVAC. They also have sub-licenses such as the Service Technician HVAC Specialty License, which is a sub-license under the HVAC refrigeration. This is just one example of many specialty licenses regulated by the board. There are numerous others. This is illustrative of the can of worms that can be opened when the state sought to develop a statewide licensing framework. In addition to dealing with these special interest groups, Iowa had to contend with the continuing education requirements for each trade, as well as funding and an enforcement mechanism to ensure the licensing law was followed. Unfortunately, that funding mechanism for enforcement never came to fruition. In theory, a statewide licensing appears to be a streamlined process and eliminate red tape. However, as a member of the trades, I want to emphasize through these examples that is anything but. In contrast, I wish to highlight success stories of local jurisdictional licensing in the Midwest, such as what exists in your backyard. Lincoln, Grand Island, and Omaha have successfully administered licensing for decades and is able to do so at a low cost to the industry. For example, where Omaha requires a $35 fee for HVAC license, Iowa charges $180 for a journey person license, $240 for a master, and $250 for a contractor. This added cost to the tradesperson could ultimately trickle down to the consumer. In closing, we recommend that the legislator carefully examine and take into consideration all the possible negative implications moving to a statewide licensing would impose on the state, its workforce, and consumers. Thank you for your time today, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions from the committee? And thank you for being here. Next testifier. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Jamie Berup, Jamie Bearup. Good afternoon, Chairman Wayne and honorable members of the Urban Affairs Committee. I am Jamie Berup, the president of the Lincoln Building Trades and business representative for Local 464 Steam Fitters and Plumbers, representing the skilled workers in the mechanical trades. I'm speaking today in response to Legislative Solution 413, which seeks to study potential statewide professional licensing for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning technicians. The existing licensing regulations at the local level is best serving the workforce, the state, and its residents. Regulating this industry locally ensures proper enforcement. If licensing is taken statewide, local jurisdictions would no longer enforce licensing laws, and that could open the door for contractors to operate without credentials. Unlicensed contractors are a threat to public health and safety, and they can also leave consumers with costly repairs. There have been examples of unlicensed contractors competing against companies who hire licensed workers, which provides them with an unfair bidding advantage. These scenarios are easily avoided by ensuring local licensing laws and are maintained. Additionally, statewide licensure would have a negative fiscal impact to the state. Neighboring states such as Iowa have incurred sizable expenses with the implementation of statewide licensing. There are also examples of states with statewide licensure which charge high fees to the tradesperson. One example of this is the state of Wisconsin, which requires $200 fee for an HVAC license. Compare that to Omaha, which requires a $35 for the same license. This added cost for the tradesperson could ultimately lead to higher prices for the consumer. In these times of economic uncertainty, it would be unwise for the state of Nebraska to incur a similar financial burden should legislation on this topic be enacted. Lastly, the committee can draw on the experience of the Nebraska Department of Environmental and Energy, NDEE, and its regulations of water operators license. This license was initially overseen by the Department of Health and Human Services, DHHS, but was moved over to the NDEE. Since the transition, tradespeople are experiencing prolonged waiting periods and backlogs to obtain their license. Additionally, there have been issues with resources to support these licensees. Unlike in NDHHS and the NDEE, isn't as user-friendly and lack of tools necessary for tradesperson to easily access resources to better serve their industry. This is obviously not an ideal situation for water operators and could foreshadow possible issues should the state explore a similar framework for the HVAC industry. It is for these reasons that we recommend the legislature does not implement statewide licensing for HVAC technicians and instead maintain the existing local licensing laws. The existing regulations are benefiting to the state, the workforce, and the constituents. We look forward to collaborating with the committee as you all deliberate on policy that will best serve the residents of Nebraska. Thank you for your time, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Next testifier. Welcome, John, to your Urban Affairs Committee.
My name is John McCarthy, MCCARTHY. Welcome, Justin, and the rest of the Urban Affairs Committee. As we know, one of the main reasons for licensing is the citizens of the state of Nebraska being protected in the health and welfare of what it is and make it safe for their homes. I'm representing McCarthy 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning, and my company has been in business for over 52 years. I've been a licensed contractor in Omaha for 52 years. I started my business in 1970 and have been licensed since August of 1970. So one of the things that I feel is I've been through a lot of this and seen a lot of it in different directions. The electrical division of the state of Nebraska has had a licensing and followed through the state, through the city, and of everything else, basically fairly smooth, and that hasn't been a problem. It's a state license. It's the only state license we have in the mechanical trades. So the state license allows people in the state of Nebraska to work underneath the same codes the same way. I just recently ran for Metropolitan Community College and lost, but anyway, the state license would help each and every one of the community colleges train underneath one license. We have multiple licenses in the state, which mean multiple different reasonings to have it as far as that. When it comes to CEU training, our credit, so we need to get for each one, it's a disaster when it's trying to teach a different area, a different code from everything else. When we move, as we see Omaha moving west, it'll run into a valley, into Waterloo, into other parts of the state. So we start running into more towns that we have. Right now, Iowa has no license, has had a license for 10 years. Nebraska has no license requirement, local license only. Kansas does not require an HVAC license. South Dakota does not require an HVAC license. Wyoming does not require a HVAC license. Colorado does not require an HVAC license, and Missouri does not require a HVAC license. One of the major benefits, I think, is that our state will work together underneath the same codes and which will protect our citizens in the state of Nebraska. I currently work in my life as far as that in Bellevue, Omaha, Papillion, La Vista, Gretna, basically town areas. So we have multiple codes that we have to look at in multiple ways of doing it. In today's housing shortages we have seen, we need the manpower to move the trades to be able to build the new housing that is needed for it. I think essentially the HVAC has been named as an essential business during the pandemic. It has shown that we are very busy and have kept very busy at this point in time. Training people, building the workforce development is for all of us to work on as far as that. And the basic things that I really want to get across is, when you talk about safety and the carbon monoxide, especially at this time of the year, carbon monoxide and safety are something that happens in this state, whether we like to see it or not, it happens. And it's unfortunate. We as a company make sure that every time we leave the house or business, or whatever place we're doing, we ask and try and make sure that everything's taken care of. Knock on wood, it's been very fortunate over the 52 years of business that I've had no challenges. Safety highlights, basically the highlights of the whole statement is by safety and the codes of the state of Nebraska. The current techs in the trade schools are able to have a trade school which has taught everything the same way with the union and its trade school can teach everything the same way. We'll be teaching underneath the same thing. Multiple licenses, it's a problem, but it's not a major problem as far as that. Having multiple licenses, state would be easier. We got to send more money into different places, and that's it. When you look at the cost of the license, it's not as big a cost throughout the cost of a whole year of a business.
I ask you to wrap up, please.
Getting in line with all the licenses in different states, that's basically all I have.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chairman Wayne and members of the Urban Affairs Committee. My name is Kelsey Johnson. It's spelled Kelsey. My last name is Johnsson. I am here on behalf of the Mechanical Contractors Association of Omaha. I am the Executive Vice President. I'm here speaking in response to Legislative Resolution 413, which seeks to study potential statewide professional licensing for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning techs. The current local licensing regime for HVAC offers important health and safety protections, as some of my colleagues have touched on prior. These requirements ensure high-quality services, safeguard against serious harm, and offer clear guidelines around professional development and training. Our cities are thriving due in part to local regulations. If these regulations were to be moved away from the purview of local jurisdictions, it's possible that the requirements for licensure would be less stringent. Low-quality practitioners can cause costly repairs, thereby lowering consumer confidence and can put health and safety at risk of the public. In addition to negative health outcomes, enacting statewide licensure of this industry could have a negative fiscal impact to the state and be procedurally burdensome. For example, the state of Iowa issues trade licenses for HVAC at the apprentice, journeyperson, and master level, whereas Omaha only issues licenses for 2 of these industry pathways. This demonstrates the possibility that statewide HVAC licensing could ultimately involve more bureaucratic red tape than what currently exists at the local level. And in terms of negative fiscal impact, the state of Iowa expended a total of $715,000 in the fiscal year of 2021, which included about 1,300 HVAC license holders. And since the state operates in a 3-year license renewal cycle, there are years when their expenditures could supersede their revenues. We can expect the state of Nebraska to incur a similar financial burden should legislation on this topic be passed. Lastly, licensing is only worth as much as its enforcement. If licensing is taken statewide, local jurisdictions would no longer be responsible for enforcing licensing laws and requiring proof of credentials. This would open the door for contractors in the state to operate without a license and perform subpar work. In closing, we recommend that the legislature do not enact statewide licensing requirements and instead maintain the existing local licensing laws, which provide a benefit to state workforce and consumers. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to collaborating with the committee.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for being here today.
Appreciate your time.
Yep. Next testifier.
Chairman Wayne, honorable committee members. Again, my name is Anna Vespoyasny. That's ANNA BESPOYASNY.
Superintendent of Permits and Inspections. I have with me today Tom Phipps, Chief Mechanical Inspector for the City of Omaha. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about this interim study for a statewide HVAC technician license. The City of Omaha agrees that licensing HVAC technicians is necessary to regulate the individuals engaging in this work. The City of Omaha currently has an air conditioning and air distribution board that is responsible for the examination, certification, and issuance of a variety of licenses for individuals performing work on furnace and air conditioning systems. Our terminology is ACAD license as opposed to the HVAC license, but we are discussing the same skilled trades group. The ACAD board has the authority to accept exams taken in other jurisdictions and issue reciprocal licenses when appropriate. The board presently reciprocates ACAD licenses with other jurisdictions in Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri, and Kansas. These measures are our effort to provide a streamlined licensing process for qualified individuals. While the City of Omaha does agree that more workers are needed in the skilled trades, we have a neutral position regarding a statewide HVAC license because of the multitude of questions with regards to its implementation and execution. Some of these questions for your consideration are the following. Who is considered a technician? Will the state reciprocate with other states? Will the state HVAC license include hydronic, ammonia, or only freon gas systems? Will there be one license for residential work and one license for commercial work? Will the state mandate what code or addition that all systems must be installed to? Obviously, there are many more questions that could be generated, and should this committee deem it appropriate, we would welcome the opportunity to be part of the conversation. Again, thank you for your time, and Tom and I are available for any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you for being here.
Thanks.
Next testifier. Welcome.
Senator Wayne, committee members, my name is Jim Harper. My address is 4203 Springview Drive, Grand Island, Nebraska. And I'm here not in support of this resolution or state licensing.
Can you spell your name for the record? Can you spell your name for the record?
James
Thank you.
Harper, excuse me. And I'm speaking against statewide licensing at this point, and for all the reasons that my predecessors have spoke against it. I think a better answer to the economic question is collaboration right now. And one of the things that happens between Hastings and Grand Island is that they work on collaborative licensing. And I know right now they're about done with collaborative licensing on plumbing and I believe mechanical as well. I am retired, so I've been out of this for a long time. I apologize for that. And I wish somebody that was a little more current could speak to this from those cities. But I did check with them just in the last day or so, and that's where they're going. I think construction is always a local matter, and you have to have a certain degree of responsiveness. And when I was a code official in Hastings, and I was also a code official in Omaha, there were always people to talk to locally to move on with it, whether it was a licensing question or a technical question. I know Mr. Phipps over here, he was very responsive to local contractors and mechanical contractors, and he could answer their questions in a timely manner. Construction is a time-sensitive activity. You got to move on. If the state is to get involved in this, I do wonder about the legal response of the state to somebody who's operating without a license in a community. I would think the response would be very slow. Within a municipality, when I was code official in Hastings and Omaha, I could go directly to the legal department and voice my concerns and get moving on whatever action needed to be taken. I think the state would be hard pressed to be that responsive. And with that, those are my comments, and I'd welcome any questions.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Next testifier.
Senator Wayne, members of the committee, my name is Lynn Rex, Lynnrex, representing the League of Nebraska Municipalities. We appreciate your time this afternoon. As the city of Omaha noted, we do have some questions as well about this, and we're happy to work with this committee if you decide to move forward on this. I can see both sides of it, but I think that there are some serious issues that would have to be addressed before you moved into state licensing. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions from the committee? What are the states that do have a state licensing? I don't have a map here, but how does the league what's the league's thought on that in other states?
Well, actually, we're going to have a conversation and a Zoom call probably in the next couple of weeks with Iowa and talk about with our counterparts over there, how they see that happening and what issues they may have had. So I do think that, again, I can see both sides of it. We can see both sides of it. I just think that there's some issues that have been raised here today and other issues that have been brought to our attention that we think probably need to be addressed if you decide to go down that road.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And of course, always happy to work with Senator Doran and Janet. So thank you.
Any other testifiers? Seeing none, that'll close the hearing on LR 4. Oh, wait, you wanna give a closing? Typically, I never give a closing in interim studies, but if you want to, no. This will close the hearing on LR 413. Thank you.